My friend Liam and I are urban explorers. Not just hobbyists snapping photos, but dedicated seekers of the forgotten. The places where history's dust settles thick and the whispers of the past refuse to die. We live for the visceral thrill, the electric current of adrenaline that courses through your veins when you step across a threshold into a world time has abandoned. Our latest conquest, the crown jewel in our grim collection of decaying monuments, was Blackwood Asylum. It wasn't just a building. It was a legend notorious for its grim history of unspeakable practices. A place where suffering had seeped into the very stone and iron, and the chilling stories still clung to its crumbling walls like a shroud. Every local, every whispered anecdote, every faded newspaper clipping online screamed a warning. And that, of course, was the irresistible lure. We arrived just before dusk, the kind of oppressive twilight that bleeds all color from the world, leaving everything in shades of bruised purple and angry gray. The asylum didn't just stand. It loomed, a monstrous, skeletal silhouette clawing at the fading light. Vines, thick as a man's arm, crawled like gnarled, skeletal fingers up its brickwork, tearing through mortar, embracing the decay. Broken windows stared out like empty, hollow eyes, reflecting nothing but the encroaching night. There was an old, rusted fence, half collapsed, a jagged maw in the gloom, and we slipped through a breach, our worn backpacks bumping softly, adrenaline already coursing through us, sharp and invigorating. The air inside the crumbling perimeter was heavy, almost viscous, thick with the scent of mold and decay, the damp earth reclaiming what was once ordered. But beneath that, something else, a faint, metallic tang, like old blood or rusted surgical instruments, a scent that hinted at the deeper, darker truths this place harbored. We clicked on our heavy-duty flashlights, momentarily pushing back the encroaching shadows that seemed to breathe and shift in the periphery. We started our exploration in the patient wards. The long corridors stretched out, cavernous and cold, each doorway a black rectangle swallowed by the darkness. Empty beds, stripped bare, their metal frames rusted and contorted, stood as silent monuments to forgotten lives. Rusted restraints, some still dangling from bedposts or bolted to the concrete floor, glinted briefly in our flashlight beams, whispering tales of desperation and confinement. Forgotten toys, a lone, eyeless doll, a wooden block carved with crude letters, lay discarded in corners, stark reminders of childhood swallowed whole by this place. Each room felt colder than the last, an unnatural chill that bit through our thick jackets, as if the suffering, the fear, the sheer agony of those incarcerated here still lingered, a pervasive, psychic frost. Liam, ever the skeptic, ever the pragmatist, tried to lighten the mood with a joke about ghosts being chilly, but his forced laughter sounded hollow, swallowed by the vast emptiness. I just shivered, not from the cold, but from a profound sense of unease that settled deep in my bones. Then, we stumbled upon what were euphemistically called the therapy rooms. These were smaller, more enclosed spaces, heavy doors now hanging askew on broken hinges. The air here was even heavier, thicker, a palpable oppression. Straitjackets, stiff and grotesque, still hung from rusted hooks on the walls, their canvas straps frayed and stained. In one corner, a monstrous, archaic electroshock machine sat, its wires brittle, its dials frozen, a testament to a brutal past. The sight of it made my stomach churn, a sickening lurch of horror. I could almost hear the screams, the agonized convulsions, the desperate pleas as we moved deeper. The silence, which had been oppressive, was suddenly broken. A faint, rhythmic scratching sound echoed from upstairs. It was distinct, sharp, and utterly out of place in the pervasive decay. We froze, flashlights suddenly locked onto the ceiling above us. "Probably just rats," Liam whispered, trying to inject a casual tone, but his voice was tight, a thin thread of forced calm. Even he, the unflappable rationalist, couldn't quite convince himself. The sound was too deliberate, too focused for mere rodents. We exchanged a silent, uneasy glance. The primal instinct to retreat screamed in my head, but the explorer's curiosity, the relentless drive to uncover, pulled us forward. We decided to investigate. The grand, central staircase, once an elegant feature, was now a precarious ascent. It creaked and groaned under our weight, protesting every step, each sound amplified in the echoing silence. Up on the second floor, the scratching grew louder, more insistent, clearly emanating from what we identified from our old blueprints as the administration office. A room that should have been utterly desolate, devoid of any activity. We reached the office door, a heavy, splintered slab of wood. Liam pushed it open slowly, revealing an interior cloaked in profound darkness, made denser by the single, dusty window that let in no moonlight. Our powerful flashlights sliced through the gloom, painting frantic, dancing circles across the debris-strewn floor. Papers were scattered everywhere, brittle and yellowed, like ancient fallen leaves. Furniture, heavy oak desks, filing cabinets, lay overturned, twisted, as if a violent struggle had taken place decades ago. The room felt raw, exposed, and then we saw it. In the very center of the dusty floor, starkly illuminated by our beams, was a crude, disturbing drawing. It was unmistakably a child's drawing, rendered with a desperate, shaky hand, but unlike anything I'd ever seen. Stick figures with exaggerated, terrified expressions, their mouths open in silent screams, surrounded by dark, amorphous, shadowy shapes that seemed to press in on them, threatening. It was a tableau of pure, unadulterated fear, and etched into the floorboards next to it, deeply, savagely, as if carved with a sharp, unforgiving tool, were 4 words. They never left. Liam, still clutching at his skepticism, scoffed, a nervous, almost desperate sound. "Some edgy teenager's prank," he muttered, his flashlight beam trembling slightly. But the words were heavy, dripping with a chilling conviction, and I felt a prickle of ice on the back of my neck. This was no prank. This was a message, an echoing cry from the past. And then the scratching started again. This time it wasn't a general echo. It was distinct, coming from inside a large, heavy, wooden closet at the far end of the room. It was rhythmic, deliberate, utterly mechanical. It was not a rat. It was not the wind. It was purposeful. We exchanged another terrified glance. This one far more visceral, less speculative. Liam, despite his trembling hands, fumbled for his phone. The explorer's instinct to record, to document, momentarily overriding his fear. He tried the closet door. It was solid, ancient wood, cold to the touch, and bolted from the outside with a heavy, rusted latch. The scratching continued, an unnerving, persistent scrape against wood, now accompanied by a faint, breathy whimpering sound, like a child crying, muffled but undeniably present. The sound was so raw, so utterly heartbreaking, that it pierced through the thick veil of our fear. We backed away slowly, instinctively, our flashlights dancing nervously, unwilling to break contact with the unseen source of the noise, yet terrified to get closer. The whimpering grew louder, morphing into a low, mournful sob, a sound that resonated deep in the hollow chamber of my chest. Then, a voice, childlike, undeniably, but warped, distorted, as if filtered through water and static, rasped from inside the bolted closet. "Let me out, please." That was it. That was the breaking point. The rational mind, Liam's skepticism, our bravado, it all shattered. We didn't wait, didn't question, didn't look for an explanation. We sprinted. The sound of that tiny, desperate, distorted voice echoed in our ears, chasing us, reverberating through every bone in our bodies. Down the treacherous, creaking staircase we flew, our boots pounding against the decaying wood, past the empty, terrifying wards, out through the breach in the fence, and into the rapidly darkening night. We didn't stop running until we were back in the relative safety of the car, our chests heaving, hearts pounding like frantic drums against our ribs. We started the engine, tires spitting gravel, and roared away, never once looking back at the monstrous silhouette of Blackwood Asylum. To this day, the sound of rhythmic scratching makes my blood run cold, and I can still hear that tiny, distorted voice, pleading to be let out. We don't explore abandoned places anymore. Some places should stay forgotten, their secrets buried, their nightmares undisturbed. This next story is a bit different, less about history and more about the insidious creep of the modern unknown. My name is Alex, and I'm a night shift security guard at a high-tech corporate campus. Most nights are mind-numbingly boring. Empty offices stretching out in sterile perfection, silent hallways echoing with their own emptiness, the low, steady hum of the server racks providing the only company. It's just me and the array of security cameras, a grid of watchful eyes. Or so I always believed. IT started subtly, so subtly that I initially dismissed it as fatigue, a malfunctioning system, anything but what it eventually revealed itself to be. I'd be doing my usual rounds, flicking through the dozens of camera feeds on my wall of monitors, and one would just flicker. A brief static burst, a momentary distortion, then back to normal. Just a glitch, I'd tell myself, shrugging it off. The system was old, outdated for a tech company, and prone to quirks. Then, I'd occasionally catch something on a monitor, a fleeting shadow at the extreme edge of a frame, a smudge of darkness that was gone before my tired eyes could properly focus, before my brain could even register what it might have been. My eyes playing tricks in the endless dark, I told myself, chalking it up to the oppressive monotony of the graveyard shift. One particularly uneventful night, around 3 a.m., at that cursed hour when the world feels most thin, most vulnerable, I was watching the main lobby camera feed. It's usually the most static, the most predictable, displaying nothing but the polished marble floor, the sleek reception desk, the occasional swaying of a potted plant from the building's internal ventilation. But then it appeared, the figure. It was a perfect person-shaped silhouette, utterly, impossibly black, absorbing all light, a true void. It stood perfectly still right in the middle of the expansive lobby. There were no discernible features, no eyes, no mouth, no clothing details, just an absolute, consuming blackness in the shape of a human. My heart hammered against my ribs, a sudden, violent beat in the otherwise silent booth. I leaned forward, gripping the desk, and frantically zoomed in on the feed. Nothing. It was gone. The lobby was as empty and pristine as it had been moments before that I checked other cameras, cycling through them rapidly, my fingers flying across the controls. Nothing. Just the usual empty rooms. A cold dread began to seep into my gut. I decided to do a quick patrol of the lobby myself, flashlight in hand, radio clutched tight. The polished floor gleamed under my beam, reflecting the cold, sterile light. Empty. Utterly, terrifyingly empty. The hairs on my arms stood on end. A primal warning. I tried to rationalize it again, forcing myself to believe it was just profound fatigue, a trick of the light, a momentary hallucination. But it kept happening. The black figure, this silent, digital phantom, would reappear. It would materialize on different cameras in different equally empty locations, standing in the deserted break room, unnervingly close to the humming server racks. Even one terrifying instance, just outside my security booth window, a silent observer in the dead of night. Always still, always silent, always gone the instant I tried to look directly at it through the glass, or physically check the location. It was like a ghost in the machine, a malevolent presence that existed only within the digital landscape of the CCTV system, haunting the very circuits. One particularly eerie night, a night that still makes my blood run cold to recall. I was watching the camera feed for the executive floor. This floor is always locked down tighter than any other, even more so during the night shift. Absolute restricted access. The figure appeared again, this time right outside the CEO's pristine, glass-walled office. This time it wasn't just standing there, an inert silhouette. It was shifting. Its form seemed to ripple, to stretch and contract like smoke, an undulating void that defied all laws of physics. It pulsed with an unseen energy, a silent, terrifying dance of non-existence. And then, the unimaginable happened. The figure turned its head, slowly, deliberately, and looked directly at the camera lens. I swear, with every fiber of my being, even though it had no features, no eyes, no discernible face, I felt like it was staring right into me, into my very soul. A cold, dread-filled silence descended upon the booth, a silence so profound it felt like the world had stopped breathing. My own breath hitched in my throat. And then, with a sharp, sickening crackle of static, that camera feed went black. Not just fuzzy, not just glitchy, utterly, completely black. And then the others followed. All the feeds went black, one by one, a terrifying domino effect, until every single monitor on dark mirror. Panic, cold and absolute, set in. It wasn't just a flicker now, not a shadow. The entire security system, the very network of eyes that protected me, had gone down. I grabbed my heavy-duty flashlight, my radio, but there was only static, a hollow hiss that mocked my desperation. The entire building was plunged into an unnerving silence, broken only by my own ragged, hyperventilating breathing. I was alone, in the dark, with whatever that thing was. I tried to reboot the system, fingers fumbling over the controls, but there was no response, no whirring of hard drives, no flicker of life from the monitors. The building, once humming with the distant thrum of technology, was now a tomb, silent and vast. I had to assume it was still out there, somewhere in the building, now utterly invisible to my screens. Free to roam, that I spent the rest of the night huddled in my small security booth. The heavy steel door locked, flashlight clutched tight enough to make my knuckles ache. I didn't dare move, didn't dare venture out. Every creak of the old building, every distant hum of the ventilation system, every imagined whisper made me jump, sending fresh waves of terror through me. When dawn finally broke, painting the outside world in the blessed colors of morning, and the first cheerful employees started arriving, the system magically, inexplicably, came back online. All cameras were working perfectly. Every feed was clear. No sign of the figure. No trace of the system crash. It was as if the night had been a waking nightmare, an isolated incident that left no physical evidence that I quit that job the very next day. I don't know what that thing was. Was it a sophisticated glitch, a manifestation of some dark code? A hacker with a terrifying sense of humor? Or something far more sinister, something truly otherworldly, something that lives in the wires and screens, a digital entity that watches us when we think we're alone, when we feel most secure in our... While you are enjoying this video, make sure to like, share and subscribe for more stories. When we feel most secure in our technological cocoons. All I know is the idea of unseen eyes, digital and cold, still haunts my dreams, and I can never again look at a screen, at a camera, without feeling a prickle of primal fear, a chilling awareness of what might be lurking just beyond the frame, waiting to be seen.